I'm your host, Sean Garvey.
This is News and Talk 1380 WAOK. Good evening. You are tuned in to the Mental Space with Sean Garvey and my EP producer, Simone, in the background. 404-726-1380 is the telephone number. This is the show in which we talk about all things considered mental health in our community. So we're going to do a breathing exercise like we do at the beginning of every show. We're going to do it real gently, real nicely. Let's all do it together. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Now, I suggest, highly recommend, everyone that is dealing with a level of stress, anxiety, or even trauma, or even a level of depression, to do that every single day. Not weekly, not once a month, not even once or twice a year, but do it every day. Don't just do it when I'm there, but do it every day. It is very relaxing, very therapeutic, and something to help you manage your mental health. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen, I feel great. I feel wonderful. I feel great. For those that may not know, I've been dealing with on and off depression, isolation, loneliness, and even a bit of anxiety from time to time, especially since 2020, since the pandemic. And boy, what a year it has been, dealing with so many personal issues, even professional issues. And I'm going to talk about it in just a few moments during my What Time Is It segment, coming up at 20 minutes past the hour. But I just want to let you all know that even though you hear me once a week on 1380 WAOK, right after our very great colleague and friend Derek Bozeman, I tend to feel at times very vulnerable off mic, behind the scenes. And I'm sometimes, if I can be very transparent with you guys, I sometimes feel very overworked. Now, I'm considered by the love and support of my fan base and my family, I'm considered to be the hardest working man in media. I don't just do radio, but I also do podcasts, I do television, and every once in a while, I do film. And to be honest with you guys, I work 7 days a week. 7 days a week. It can be very tiring, very stressful, but rewarding at the same time. You know why it's rewarding? It's not because of the money, it's not because of the status, the recognition, but to me, it's finding that passion to do something that you love doing, even if you want to do it for free. Now, I don't do everything for free now. I'm not in this seat for 2 hours for free. Neither is Simone. But we love doing it. But we also need to tell ourselves we need to fall back and chill, rest. Rest your mind, rest your body, and don't overwork yourself. I know plenty of people who have overworked themselves and they find themselves inside of a medical center, inside of a clinic, inside of a hospital, trying to do too much, working over 12 hours, even at times, and not even taking the time to do their breathing exercise, not even taking the time to say a prayer or even meditate. Who all in here meditates? You know, every now and then. My special guest says every now and then. Every now and then. But in this world today of advanced technology and the mindset of being an entrepreneur. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Everybody wants to be a business owner. And, you know, a lot of times when you are an entrepreneur, there's no days off. No days off. You got to create your own day off, you know. But it's very vital, ladies and gentlemen, that you take the time to rest. Take the time to breathe. Take a nap here and there. Of course, rest, get you some sleep. And I don't mean going to sleep for 2 hours or for 3 hours. I've heard people say, oh, I can go to sleep for 2 to 3 hours and then I'm good. No. The average person needs about 6 to 8 hours of sleep. But I just want to tell you all that because as a person who has been in media for 20 years, and this month is going to be my 7th year working here at News and Talk 1380 WAOK. My 7th year. I think it's just very paramount that we reward ourselves, because you heard me use the word reward just a few moments ago. Reward ourselves to step outside of the norm at times. Think outside of the box and take the time to just rest, to just breathe, just relax. There's so much stuff going on in the world today. You don't want to add the world problems to your personal and your professional life, trying to accomplish everything in one day. Rome wasn't built in a day. It takes time to build something. So just keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. We got what time it is coming up in just a few moments. And then plus my special guest is in the studio. Tonight's topic, we're talking about parental alienation. What to do when a father is in crisis. We're also going to be joined by a professional clinical worker. And we're also going to be joined by some professional attorneys that specialize in child custody and so much more. 404-726-1380. You are tuned into the mental space with Sean Garvey right here on News and Talk 1380 WAOK.
With Earthquake and my main man, my only man when I hit that kid. My main man, Sean Garvey.
It's the new Rashad Richie Morton Show. Weekday from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m.
This is Rashad Richie, host of the Rashad Richie Morton Show. Politics, social issues, entertainment, and yeah, even some trap music. We talk about it all. The Rashad Richie Morton Show.
What time is it? It is now time for What Time Is It? And I want to take the time to say thank you. Thank you to everyone that followed me on social media and that have seen my post a few days ago when I had somewhat of a breakdown, an episode. And I went on social media and I said what I said. And I said that I was going to take at least a week or two off social media, which can sometimes be hard to do when you are in this profession called radio and TV. Christmas is around the corner, holiday season. We all feel it. A form of isolation, depression, even at times social anxiety. And I just happened to have an episode. I won't have the time to go too much into it, but the feedback, the comments, the calls, the emails, the DMs, the text messages, just the outpouring of support and love that I receive from you all, I just want to take the time to say thank you. And I may not take the time to go to every single comment and say, I love you, I really appreciate you. I may not take the time to call everybody, every individual and say, thank you so much. But just know that you are in my thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, especially my WAOK viewers and listeners. You all been rocking with me for almost 2 years now, since the premiere of The Mental Space, February 2022. And I just really, really appreciate the outpouring love and support that I receive from my family, my friends, my colleagues, even the people who call me and say, yo, you good? The text messages that say, you good? Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. And even the inspiration that I've given to people who follow me on social media, whether it's somebody saying, hey, you made me want to go seek therapy. You made me want to go meditate. You made me want to go back to church. Just by that comment, just by that message I posted on social media, folks. We all need a little bit of help. We all need a little bit of support. So I really want to say thank you. Yeah, you can turn the lights now. I really want to say thank you. Thank you so much for the love, the support you all shown me. And, I'm here for you, just like you are here for me. So I wanted to take the time to say thank you and so much gratitude to everyone. From yours truly, right here on News and Talk 1380 WAOK. And if you want to call in and just say thank you, you can call in at 404-726-1380. And, of course, I will make sure to show you that love back. But tonight, we're talking parental alienation. What is parental alienation? It's a strategy whereby one parent intentionally displays to the child unjustified negativity aimed at the other parent. The purpose of this strategy is to damage the child's relationship with the other parent and to turn the child's emotion against that other parent. And speaking of parent, I have one sitting next to me this evening. And I have some reasons why I wanted to bring this gentleman on the mental space. He's no stranger to me. I've known him for years. He's been one who has done a lot of great work in the community. He's been on this Once Upon a Time relationship-based show on WAOK, Love and Relationships with Joyce Littel, which I produced a few years ago, wink, wink. And he's going through something right now, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to spend a few minutes talking to him before the bottom of the hour because we have some other guests that are going to chime in on the conversation. But we have Philip here in the studio. Philip.
Thank you for having me, brother.
Oh, is mic on? We're going to get your mic on for you.
Thank you for having me, brother.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. I would ask you, just like I ask everyone else, how's your mental health? Because that's that's a loaded question for you right now, dealing with a matter that we're going to go into in just a few moments. But let me just tell the listeners my history with this brother, Philip. Back in 2006, you and another colleague that we know, Akuba, shout out to Akuba, you all hosted this event called the Peace Fest. And I don't know, I can't remember because it wasn't that long ago, but it was a while.
Almost 20 years.
Almost 20 years. Wow. Yeah. 2006. Someone put me on to you all, and I was one of the panelists for the Peace Fest that took place there. And this was at the time when Janelle Monáe, one of the most popular artists of all time right now, Janelle Monáe wasn't Janelle Monáe.
Right.
Janelle was just a woman in a suit with a band. Right. And we didn't know who she was. It was like, who is this weird person performing on stage?
Right. In a gym.
In a gym, inside of a gym, exactly. And, I felt your very kind spirit when I was in that room, and I was just so thankful to have been in the room with you guys talking about the radio industry and the importance of it, right? And I stayed in contact with you for years and years. And making a long story short, I came across a Facebook post on social media. It was more than just a post, it was a video. It was a couple of videos that you posted online. And I've seen a side of you, Philip, that I have never seen in my history of knowing you. Now, those that don't know what I'm talking about, we won't really go in too deep behind what that video was. True. But you posted a couple of videos, including one in which you really, really expressed yourself in a very, I don't want to say toxic, but it's hard for me to describe it in a very disheartening manner.
Sure.
Very disheartening. And it was a lot of profanity in the video, a lot of stuff you expressed. And I was just like, wow, that's not the Philip that I knew back in 2006.
Sure.
But you are a father. You're a father of 3?
4.
4.
Mm-hmm.
Father of 4. And I saw in that moment, in that video, that you was an angry father. But the anger wasn't directed towards your kids. It was directed towards the mother of your son. I just described to our listeners, we're about to go into the news, but what does parental alienation, what does that mean to you as a father?
It means isolation, depression, loneliness. It means hating the holidays. It means being nervous about picking your kid up from school and wondering if they're going to actually be at school because they may have been taken from school that day on your time to get them. It means a lot of things. And I could literally write a book on it because I've experienced the gamut of parental alienation, and I hope that I can help someone today with it.
Somebody that's going through the same
Absolutely.
thing. So we're going to have Philip tell his story. Started out as a love story, and then things went left from there.
Sure.
That involves not just only your son, but involves the children as well. So let's talk about it when we come back from the break. We got news coming up. It is The Mental Space with Sean Garvey, right here on News and Talk 1380, WAOK.
It's your boy Major, Mr. Rocking that major hope. I'm feeling major hope to the people. You're tapped into The Mental Space with Sean Garvey here on News Talk 1380.
acknowledging the tragic event that took place in Las Vegas. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the victims and to the person who is currently in critical condition following the tragic events that took place in Las Vegas, Nevada today. Our thoughts and prayers go out to you all.
Mass shooting?
Say again?
What tragedy?
It was a mass shooting.
Okay.
Of course, but we played the news story. We played the news story in the break. But yet, you know, our thoughts and prayers go out to the people affected by today's tragic events in Las Vegas, Nevada, the mass shooting. It's a very hard pill to swallow. Very hard pill to swallow, but we pray for them and continue to keep them in your thoughts and prayers. 404-726-1380 is the telephone number. The Mental Space with Sean Garvey, News and Talk, 1380 WAOK. We're talking about parental alienation, what to do when a father is in crisis. Once again, we are joined by a father himself, Philip, who is in the studio. And also joining with us right here on the Mental Space, we have a couple of guests on the line. I just want to make sure that they are still on the line because we really appreciate them for taking time to be a part of this important conversation. Once again, we have the attorneys, the PWB attorneys. We have Jessica Williams and Kristen Pleasant. Are you two ladies on the line? Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for calling in. And we also have clinical social worker and therapist, Dr. Bianca Rush. Did I say your last name right? Is it Rush, Dr. Bianca?
Yes, you did. That's correct.
Thank you for calling in and being a part of this conversation, something that is very, very needed as we talk about parental alienation. So I'm going to let Philip have the floor. Tell us the story. It starts off, love story. Boy meets girl, girl meets boy. They get into a relationship, may end up in a marriage. Things are fine. You know, you have a family, and then things turn for the worse. But let's start from the beginning.
Yeah. So let me start with this. I made a promise to my son about 3 days ago, and I said, "You will never hear me disparage your mother." He's too young to understand the totality of our dynamic. He is a very intuitive young man, young boy, but he's seen more than he ought to see for a 7-year-old. And so I want to be careful in how I characterize his mother. And then I also just don't have anything that is I could go all day about the positive. She is. I actually met her doing community work. During that time that I met you, a couple of years later, I met her, and she had an organization. She still has an organization that feeds billions of meals to people in the community over the last 10 years. She's an educator. She is a hard worker. She has a strong vision for where she wants her life to go. And I maintain that no matter what we are going through. Mm-hmm. And because I have experienced a form of parental alienation before, I know that things are subject to change. And even in this moment, although the pain that you witnessed on that video was and is real, I do always save space for when my son is 25, 35 years old. And these types of things go on record. And I want him to know that I kept my promise. So I just wanted to preface whatever I say going forward with that.
Okay.
I also want to put a human face on these issues, because oftentimes we reduce it to baby mama, baby daddy drama. My children were all conceived in love. They were all conceived on purpose. And it was almost especially the case with my son's mother, because of the work that we were doing, because of the commonality that we had in terms of how we see community work and community involvement. And we are two very strong-willed people, and it works when it works. And when it doesn't work, it's a disaster. And I have had to relinquish a lot of territory, so to speak, in protection of my son, in consideration of my son. And the breakdown in our dynamic occurred because I started to set boundaries. And that breakdown started to occur about 5 years ago, and it just has not resolved itself yet.
But that was during the relationship.
Right, and that's one of the things that I wanted to touch on with parental alienation is that there are soft forms of it that happen inside the relationship or marriage or wherever you are, however you are situated, that we don't really identify as parental alienation, and the reason that it blindsides fathers so much is because you're not aware of what's happening right under your nose. And I'll give you an example. You get into a disagreement and you might be taking the kids to, let's say, tennis practice, right? But you get into a disagreement and then she takes the kids for the day. Now you're thinking, you're just taking the kids for the day, blow off a little steam. But that's a little seed of when you don't do what I want you to do, or when I am upset with you, I will take the thing that is precious to you away from you. That escalates to something as extreme as taking the kid out of the country. So I've experienced the gamut, and I still maintain that the worst attributes can be brought out of the best people, and you don't know a monster until you've either divorced them, or until you are going through a custody battle, or until there's something very precious on the line, and it tends to be matters of the heart. So that's what I experienced. I tried to set some parameters around my level of involvement, not in our child's life, but in a child that she had before we were together. We both had children. My daughter's actually in the studio right now. We both had children around the same age, and we were doing life together. Yeah. And it was working again when it worked. But once I, at the behest of my therapist, decided to establish some boundaries there because the relationship had dissolved, and it was encouraged that we focus on the main thing, let the main thing be the main thing. And that was what I was attempting to do. And in my attempt to do that, I got a lot of backlash. And so the very thing that she had witnessed me experience in a prior situation, it was almost like she got the cheat code. Mm-hmm. And that's something that a lot of fathers, especially when you are in a blended family situation, when you are inviting someone behind the veil, and so they see those precious things, they see the things that can be your triggers. To your point earlier, you said I have never seen that side of Philip. You will never see that side of me unless somebody is messing with my kids. Yeah. I can go from Dr. King to Tyrese real quick about my kids. And so
and I want to just put a bookmark in that real quick for those who are just tuning in or trying to catch up to speed to what is happening. Philip is a parent. He's a father of 4. And there was a video that was put out. It was actually 2 or 3 videos that were put out on social media where Philip was addressing his situation with the mother of his son. And I know we can't talk too much about what was mentioned in the videos due to legal purposes, because this has become a legal matter. And so just to summarize it all up to our listeners and to our viewers, Philip, in the video, and from what I gathered and what I interpreted from the video, was you expressing your frustration and anger towards the mother of your son, who is allegedly trying to take your son out of the country and put your son in their custody, which is causing you to not have that kind of relationship, that kind of closeness relationship with your son.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. 404-726-1380 is the telephone number. When we come back, we want to talk to Dr. Bianca, and she's going to talk to us from the mental health aspect when it comes to situations like these. And plus, we have the PWB attorneys on the line. They're going to talk to us from a legal aspect on the matter. But you can still call in and weigh in on the conversation at 404-726-1380. Plus, we are streaming live on the Flow Television Network and on reach1network.tv, as well as on our Instagram pages, 1380 WAOK and Sean Garvey ATF. We will be right back.
Make every day your own good news and always keep yourself and others in a great mental space. News and Talk 1380 WAOK.
Their closing gets it to you straight.
You shouldn't sit in jail for no 4 or 5 months because you couldn't pay $100 bond.
No chaser.
Some people have done that.
No ice.
Because the
You
cash
said you
bond
can
is
go from
required.
Dr.
What is a
King to
homeless man
Tyrese
gonna get
and-
$100?
No more.
Well, I'm going to get $100 from.
Do anything. I have done everything, and I will do anything for my kids.
So was that like the only time, or have there been times? Because you said that you would never see that side of Philip unless it has to do with his kids. But was there ever a time before those videos where you had to turn up?
Yeah, absolutely.
Was that one or more times?
Maybe not to that level, but the disagreements have been extremely toxic. And yeah, there have definitely been times. I will say this: that was in response to a post that was put on social media that was suggesting that I could not be found. And so, and to establish this argument that
Credit card debt happens
because I can't find the father issue a passport, so I can take him out of the country. And so, and mind you, I had gone to the passport office 3 times, 2 of those times with no shit.
free with our debt reset program that will dramatically reduce your debt down to a fraction of what you owe. Our debt reset program is customized.
We're talking about parental alienation, what to do when a father is in crisis. 404-726-1380 is the telephone number. Philip, a father of 4, currently dealing with a matter involving the mother of his son and allegedly trying to take his son out of the country. And right now, Philip is just feeling different forms of so many emotions from anxiety, depression, you name it. And we here with our other guests that we're going to be speaking to in just a few moments. 404-726-1380 is the telephone number. And for all of my social media followers out there, we're going to go to the phone line. So you cannot hear the people that we have on the phone lines. Go to WAOK.com and listen to everyone, including the guests that are on the phone line, so you can hear them. You won't be able to hear them via social media, so go to WAOK.com. If you have the link, click on it right now and listen to the entire interview. Dr. Bianca Rudge, clinical social worker, therapist, who's been doing this for many years, specializing in so many different things. She supports men and fathers in confronting their anxieties and encouraging them to explore their ideas and beliefs about manhood, masculinity, and fatherhood. Dr. Bianca Rudge, I know you're taking it all in, hearing this man's story. And so in your line of work, I know you come across this so much in your profession. And what goes through your mind right now hearing Philip's story thus far from a clinical standpoint? In your opinion, Dr. Bianca, in your opinion, because we hear a lot about deadbeat fathers and fathers, there's not too many fathers in the household, especially there's not too many black fathers in the household. We hear that a lot of times, and the breakdown, the lack of structure in the family household. Why do you think we keep using that narrative? Why do you think that narrative is still out there? We have a father of four here in the studio, Philip, and even the many shows that I have done thus far here on 1380 WAOK, I have brought in a lot of fathers that are involved in their children's life, in their kids' life. And that's what made me wanted to ask you that question, Dr. Bianca, because I hear that as a black man who doesn't have kids. I'm not a father, but I came from a single parent household. And even at 39 years old, I know that there are good fathers that are out there. I come from a family whose fathers are still in their sons' lives, and the son is in their father's lives as well. But from a mental health standpoint, yeah, back then it wasn't too many spaces, too many places for a black man to really speak about their vulnerability or have a place where they are expressing what they're going through between himself and the mother of their child or the mother of their children. She said a cry for help. I'm going to turn it over to you, Philip. And if you have any questions you want to ask Dr. Bianca Rush, you're more than welcome to. Was it really a cry for help?
To be frank, no, it wasn't. Because I spent $21,000 in court over the last 2 years helping myself to get my son. I know that because of the tactics that are being used, they're typically underhanded. They're typically done in the dark, in the back in the booth. That I had to make a public sort of pronouncement that that is no longer in play without a response from me. So there have been times where I see a Facebook post, I'll see or I will hear, just conjecture or just my business in the streets, and I do not pay that any mind. But I have found that to be ineffective. So for me, it is about dealing with the issue right where it happens. If it happens on social media, we're going to deal with it on social media. And I take care not to use certain language, not as far as profanity or not, but not to use certain language that would bind me up legally. But I have learned that when you're dealing with that kind of, dynamic, that you can be handling things behind the scenes, trying to, still protect the other person to a degree, right? And you don't want your business out there.
Yeah.
And I just found that that didn't work for me, And so even if let's say let's walk it all the way out, even if my son ends up out the country, living out the country, it will go on record that I fought and I spoke out. So.
Okay, Dr. Bianca Rush, I know you got to go soon, but I want you to hang tight as we go into the second hour of the program. But I want to definitely segue to the attorneys, Attorney Pleasant and Attorney Williams, when we come back from the break and talk about the legal aspect of this matter. Because the question I want to ask you, Philip, when we come back is regarding social media. And we talked about this offline, the classic saying, especially when you are in a legal situation, anything that you may say or do can be used against you in a court of law. And some people will look at that social media video and say, Philip, I don't know if that was a good idea.
I definitely got that.
You got that?
I got a lot of that.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about that. And I know Simone got some information on that she's going to share with us in just a few moments that she's going to pass over to me in the second hour of the program. Parental alienation, what to do when a father is in crisis. 404-726-1380. It is the Mental Space with Sean Garvey, News and Talk 1380, WAOK, and on the Flow Television Network.
Oh yeah, I got a lot of that. We actually have it in our parenting plan where you can't make social media posts, but I have so much evidence of her making social media posts that would pale in comparison. Yeah. So it's really, you saw the first. Like everybody else saw my first reaction, but there's been so many things, so many small things that have happened. I'll give you an example. Third school year in a row. She changed the school and didn't tell me what school he was. I believe it's Central America. We can take the word legal out of it. The justification is educational opportunities. She has an opportunity to teach overseas and thinks that it would bolster his academic experience by having him out the country away from me for 9 months and sending him back home over the summer. And let me just be clear. My oldest child is a straight A student. My son just showed me his A in math and high B in science 2 days ago. I'm for education. I'm for enriched experience, things like that. If we did not have a track record of going months without seeing him, if I didn't have to pay a lawyer $300 an hour just to have it put in a parenting plan to send a book bag back when he's with me, then I would be more open to this idea of an international sort of academic experience. But what I fear happening, and I've expressed this to her privately, is that you will go out the country and I just won't see him again. You'll tell me you'll send him on July 1st and he can stay until August 31st, and you just won't do it. So we don't have enough examples of good faith kind of interaction where we don't have to go to the courts to get small things, to address small matters for me to now say, hey, I trust you I trust that you will be a woman of your word and agree to this new arrangement. On top of the fact that I do not consider myself to be a weekend dad. That's not my brand of parenting. My oldest daughter lives with me full time. She's 13 years old. I don't play that. So outside of the fact that he needs a regular cadence of quality time with me and being away that long, no matter where he is not aligned with who I am as a father. It's this other sort of outstanding issue, which is that we do not negotiate well 20 minutes from each other. Right.
Okay, and that was just to be clear, just to let our listeners know, that was Attorney Pleasant and Attorney Jessica Williams. You can go ahead and give your take on it.
an investment, that if they would hold the child or they're trying to do some funny business, as opposed to just gonna go ahead and physically take the child and place the child physically in your hand. That's how bad it has gotten. And so they incorporated that into our judgment. Yes, we should.
Okay. Attorney Pleasant and Attorney Williams, hang on the line for one moment. We're going to bring back Dr. Bianca Rudge. We're going to break down the different signs when it comes to parental alienation. 404-726-1380 is the telephone number. And let me just say this. I wanted to bring Philip onto the show to tell his side of the story. I don't know the mother. I don't know, but she is welcome to call in to give her side of the story. If she's out there listening and or watching us, she is more than welcome to call in and give her side. 404-726-1380 is the telephone number, because all we're trying to do is bring some resolution to the matter, especially when there are kids involved. But once again, we're going to come back, break down those signs of parental alienation, and we're going to have more on the way. It's The Mental Space with Sean Garvey, News and Talk 1380 WAOK.
You're tuned into the mental space with none other than Sean
I filed
Garvey.
a
Y'all always keep yourself
children's
other than
passport
great
issuance
mental
alert.
space, y'all. Make sure you keep it
With
locked
the
right here. Music Talk
Second.
1380
So I filed a
WAOK.
children's passport issuance alert. So basically, if a child is taken out of the, if there's an attempt to file for the child's passport, they will alert the other parent so that the other parent cannot take the child outside of the country or can't get the passport issue. The challenge with that in our case is that because she is the custodial parent, that she could, bring the parenting plan up to the passport office, and they could, override this thing that's been filed.
Okay.
So it's one of those things where you can put the legal parameters in place, but ultimately, the way to have the most control over is to have full custody. I went for joint physical custody because that's fair. Got dirty, got real nasty, leaned in favor of her having been the primary custodial parent. But we have
We're using way too many classes.
we have all major decisions about his life have to be made together. But what she does is she takes advantage of the tie-breaking authority that's given to her in that parenting plan. So the tie-breaking authority basically says, if you all can't agree on something, then the primary parent can override the decision. So she basically walks in with 2 votes to my 1 at all times. So in most cases, I don't even bother having a conversation because I'm like, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it. And if it happens to be what I want, so be it. And then there's the other piece too. This gets real complicated about getting somebody back in court.
Yeah.
And having to have them served. They can avoid being served.
Right.
So
it's
not straightforward.
Yeah. 404-726-1380. That's 404-726-1380 is the telephone number. We are still talking about parental alienation, what to do when a father is in crisis. Now, Philip, you showed me a particular type of passport, and I want to ask the attorneys this question before we go back over to Dr. Bianca Rudge, who is still hanging out with us. There's a particular passport that could override it, and I want to be educated on this because I think this is something very important for people that are in your particular predicament to know when it comes to child custody. But there's a particular passport that can be overwritten.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it's not an actual passport. So this is for anyone who is.
It's like a form.
Right,
Okay.
exactly. So I had to file with the U.S. Department of State what's called a request for entry into Children's Passport Issuance Alert Program. Now it's kind of historically used for children who are victims of trafficking, but it can also be used by parents who are at risk of being having their kids taken away from them illegally. And so I filed that, which also feeds the kind of impetus for the video, because I actually filed that on the day that the last time that she and I went to the passport office. I filed this on that day. So basically what it does is it will alert the other parent if there's an attempt to file a passport on your minor child. And in our case, because we have a parenting plan in place, and she is the primary parent under our arrangement, we have joint legal custody. That means that all major decisions are made together, but she has tie-breaking authority. So in our case, I'm always up against two votes. So she could also take the parenting plan to the passport office, and depending on who's working the window that day, however they interpret that, they could still issue a passport. So although I did my due diligence by filing that, her next move was to then go on Facebook and create a narrative that she was not able to get in touch with me. If she calls up here, I'm going to play the recording of that incident. By the way, tons of recordings. But to anybody who's dealing with that, if you are Taye Diggs' character on Best Man, and your wife or your ex-wife or your ex whoever is trying to take you out of the country, one barrier to that is filing that document.
Wow. Okay. Attorney Pleasant and Attorney Williams, what do you have to say to that? I mean, is that something that people need to know, need to keep in mind when they are dealing with a legal matter? Okay, let's go over the different signs of parental alienation. We're going to go back over to Dr. Bianca Rudge, clinical social worker and therapist who deal with these type of matters. And I want you to respond to some of the signs that we have in front of us when it comes to parental alienation, Dr. Bianca. We have bad mouthing the targeted parent. So when it comes to that, what are some of the things to look for in that particular matter when it comes to parental alienation and bad mouthing the targeted parent? Like, you telling that parent, oh, you shouldn't raise your child to be like this. You shouldn't do your child like that. And that person look at you and be like, who are you to tell me how to raise my child? So tell us more about that particular sign, Dr. Bianca. So let's talk about coming from the targeted parent first. Let's cover that. Yeah. Another sign: withholding medical, academic, and other important information. What does that look like? I think that's important as well too. To Dr. Bianca Rush. Okay. And one more before we go to break. Telling the child, I know this can be very heavy, Philip. Telling the child, very important, telling the child that the targeted parent does not love him or her. That can definitely put everyone in that particular circle in an uncompromised position. Can we go a little bit more into detail with that, Dr. Bianca? Let's do it after the break. Let's cover that area of signs when we come back from the break, Dr. Bianca, and then we're gonna take some calls at 404-726-1380 is the telephone number. We got Simone's Choice, and then later on in the program, Philip, I'm gonna play a clip from last week's episode of The Mental Space. We had a gentleman by the name of Littel Fields. He was in the studio, a mental health advocate. And he explained to us the type of relationship that he currently has with his son. But there was one particular point in time where the father and son relationship was not really all that good. It wasn't. But we're going to get into that in just a few moments. It is The Mental Space with Sean Garvey. We are broadcasting live on 1380 WAOK, the Flow Television Network, and on ReachOneNetwork.tv.
WAOK. So you can tune in for Mr. Garvey's Mental Space, okay?
So how you feeling thus far, man? I mean,
It's good.
so much information. Like, wow, you know.
I think so. What happens is, as a dad, you have to locate your deactivation button, and that means that you know you're kind of in this ongoing struggle.
Brown, Papa don't take no mess.
At Mental Space Live, it's the Mental Space with Sean Garvey on News and Talk 1380 WAOK.
And you're not answering Todd, right? You're not gonna take Todd's call?
We can take a question, but if you start making comments, you'll shut them off.
Well, you segue that.
Say it. All right. The one and only James Brown. Papa Don't Take No Mess, a song that you're going to hear a lot on WAOK. That you may have heard a lot, that you still going to hear a lot, especially on Derek Bozeman's show, Too Much Truth. Shout out to Derek Bozeman. All right, and it ties into tonight's topic, conversation on parental alienation, what to do when a father is in crisis, just like the gentleman that I'm sitting next to right now. Philip, before we go to the phone lines, we still have Dr. Bianca Rudge and the PWB attorneys, Attorney Pleasant and Attorney Williams, still hanging out with us to unpack this gentleman's situation and just many fathers that are going through the same circumstances as Philip. 404-726-1380 is the telephone number. Before the break, Dr. Bianca Rudge, I asked you to go more in detail, more in depth behind the other side of parental alienation, and that is telling the child that the targeted parent does not love him or her. And I was telling Philip that when I hear that, that can cause a child to grow up having some form of childhood trauma. And I know we can't close out the show without talking a little bit about childhood trauma. And I've said this before in one of the previous episodes of the Mental Space, that a lot of things that people face nowadays come from the household, come from the lack of family structure, the situation, even similar to what Philip is going through. So let's go in more depth, Dr. Bianca, when it comes to telling the child that the targeted parent does not love him or her. How much of an impact does that make to the child and the childhood trauma that can or may come along with that? And there's so many other signs connected to that, but there's one thing that I also want to point out too when it comes to signs of parental alienation, forcing the child to choose. And it seems like in this case with Philip, it's almost like the child is the child in the position, and this is a question to you, Dr. Bianca, is the child in the position to choose whether he wants to go with Philip or whether he wants to go with the mother? Let's revisit that, shall we?
7.
Let's go to the phone lines. Todd has a question. Todd, what is your question for Philip or for the guests we have on the line? All right. Thank you, Todd. Thank you for calling in. We really appreciate it. 404-726-1380 is the telephone number. Children should not be treated as property, like Todd said, and they shouldn't. You know, that causes even more childhood trauma as the child grows old. You know, there's going to be a point in time where the child is going to become an adult and it's going to look back and come to a realization at some point in their adult life that how they treat other people in relationships, even in the workplace, Philip. This all comes from the household. I've seen my mother and my dad fight, argue occasionally, trying to put me in a position where I have to choose between staying with dad or going with the mother. And no child shouldn't have to go through that. We're going to play a clip, and I'm going to share a quick testimonial story about something that happened with a young man and why the importance of a father needs to be instilled in everyone's minds and everyone's heart. So we're going to get into that before we close out the show. It is The Mental Space with Sean Garvey, News Talk 1380 WAOK.
Detroit City, and I'm hanging out with my man, Sean Garvey. You know what it is.
It's the new Rashad Richie Morning Show. Weekday from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Where's the split?
It's on the desktop. It says Vidal Fields.
Social issues, entertainment, and yeah, even some trap music. We talk about it all. The Rashad Richie Morning Show, only on News and Talk 1380.
just talk to the listeners and tell them why it's important to make sure that a father is in the child's life. So I was at a local gas station a couple of weeks ago. I was doing laundry. It was sometime after 10 p.m. at night. And as I was getting ready to go inside this local convenience store / gas station, I heard a voice, and it was a young man. And he was he was calling my attention, right? So he was like, hey, folk, come here. And I looked at him with a questionable look on my face. And at that particular point, I had no choice but to ignore him because, one, I did not know who this young guy is. Number two, he was in a area outside of the convenience store where it was dark. It was just him by himself. I don't know what he might or could have done if I approached him. And so when I'm inside of the gas station, I noticed that moments later, he came up to me. He was like, hey, listen, man, I just needed a jump. I just needed a jump in my car. I was like, all right. I looked at him and I told him, okay, I can help you. But let me give you some advice, young man. Don't ever do that. Don't ever call for someone to come and help you and you're in an area where you're by yourself and people don't know who you are. It's nighttime. We get so many news stories, Philip, and everyone listening, about young people getting in competitions with people, and it ends up being a tragic incident. So I was talking to the young brother, and at first he seemed to be unbothered. No, not unbothered, I'm sorry, bothered. He seemed to be bothered by what I was telling him. And I could tell nobody never taught him right from wrong, right? So I went ahead and I provided assistance to the young gentleman. Now, if you all remember a couple of months ago on WAOK on the mental space, I talked about how one of the water boys came up to my window and approached me, which caught me off guard because he came up to me within a split second and he startled me to the point where I reacted, not in a violent way, but in a way where I had to reach under my seat just in case. And I won't really go into much into that. And looking back at it, I said to myself, you know what, I should have talked to the young brother. Because I don't know what this young brother's story is, but I could tell that he didn't have a male role model. He didn't have a male figure in his presence to really give him the tools, to really teach him, to really educate him on the proper way to approach people. Because a lot of our youth, a lot of our young African-American men, and we talk about it a lot, we talk about the youth and the new generation and young people getting into gangs and to organizations that they don't need to be in, and the trouble that they get themselves in. But a lot of it has to do with what occurred in the household. And even if there is a two-parent household, if the family is not structured, they're going to look towards another type of family that's going to bring them in and teach them what they think life should look like for them. And at times, it's not pretty. It's not pretty at all. So Philip and our guests, I want to play a clip. And it's from last week's episode of The Mental Space, where we talked about Radell Fields, who's a mental health advocate and a part of many organizations that advocate mental health. And he talked about at one particular time where the relationship between him and his son wasn't all that good. So let's play that clip real quick, Simone.
A relationship with your child, with your son. And so you didn't have that father-son relationship with him For a little while. For a little while. How did that make you feel?
Less than a man. Like my fatherhood had been taken away, that my somewhat rights had been taken away to be a father. And that's how it felt. And my thinking was, it's taking everything from me. Because in that, I went to college and got kicked out of college. Because of party, Tuskegee University, all them golden. Oh yeah, I went there and got kicked out of there because of party. Because of the hurt and the pain that I had experienced in the past. And it just affects my behaviors, my actions. And man, it was a rough time. And when my son came, it wasn't that good feel. It was good that I had.
He said it was rough. Philip, how do you feel? How do you feel about that? And just tell the listeners within the last few minutes that we have of the show why it became so important for you, especially after hearing that clip from Vidal Fields, who is a father as well. Why it is so important for you to fight this and to really bring light to the situation.
Right.
Because I see you kind of holding back tears a little bit just after listening to that clip there.
Because I understand those are false messages that we tell ourselves. I'm less of a man. If we all have a picture of how this fatherhood thing was going to look. My parents just celebrated 35 years of marriage last weekend. I grew up on the Cosby Show. I'm a Cosby kid. I'm a lost parent of the Banks family in Bel Air. I saw it up front, and I saw it. Those are the messages that I got. I had an idea of the kind of father I wanted to be, particularly the kind of father I wanted to be to my son. And so when that gets disrupted, you have to really fight against the image that you thought it would turn out to be. I wanted to be a father more than I wanted to be anything, literally anything, and I have some pretty high ambitions. So it means something. It would be like me, I don't know. I can't even give an example of it. It's a part of my identity, but at a certain point, you have to separate yourself from that identity as a father, and realize you are a man who is a father. You're not less of a man because there are some barriers in front of you that are keeping you from being the kind of father you would be under normal circumstances. I go back to this example all the time. My oldest daughter lives with me full time. She's 13 years old. It is proof that when you get out the way, you can predict. When you get out the way, some of the people who are in the way, we'll just leave it there, and let the daddy. You will benefit from it. We're talking about practical standpoint. If you adhere to your schedule when the child's supposed to come with you, it gives you time to recharge. If you have a dependable parent, use the dependable parent. Co-parenting can actually work out. I've actually seen it when it's healthier work a little bit better than parents who are in a traditional setting, because you get that built-in time to recharge. And so when that is disrupted, and your brand of fatherhood, it can be you will tell yourself those things, but you have to, at a certain point, it's like after you have put forth the effort to be engaged, to provide, to protect, all of those things, that's your part. As long as you can always point back to what you did or what you're doing, the other parent has their own, like there's going to be a receipt for them too. There's going to be an invoice rather that child is going to hand in too, and you have to really kind of rest in that. And it's not relaxing. It's not taking your foot off the gas. It's just trusting that what you have done and who you are is authentic. It doesn't. I have one thing this has taught me is that I have truly let go of this idea of what people think of me, because I have heard so many crazy things about myself that's been put out, by this other person, and then they dispatch kind of minions and all these, things to kind of do their bidding for them.
Yeah,
it's forced me to be secure. To really deal with this issue of like security and who I am as a man. So I will never. I used to identify. I used to over-identify really as a dad.
Right.
But you have to. This forces you to say, no. I am this way, and when my kids have access to me, they will experience this.
Yeah. Dr. Bianca Rush, I know you got to go, but go ahead and give the listeners your last final thought and information on how people can reach out to you for your services and additional information, ma'am. All right, thank you. And to the PWB attorneys, go ahead and give out your information and any last legal advice or remarks you want to give to Philip this evening. Thank you so much, attorneys. We really appreciate it. And thank you, most importantly, Philip, for coming on the Mental Space this evening and telling your story. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right, this has been the Mental Space with Sean Garvey. And my mother was listening, by the way. So for clarification, I did not grow up watching my parents fight. I was talking about another father that may be in the same shoes or already in the same shoes as Philip. So I just want to make sure that I clarify that for not only my mother, but for the viewers and the listeners tuning in. So no worries at all. But we really appreciate you for tuning in to this important episode of the Mental Space. Thank you to my executive producer, Simone, for holding things down with me. And as I say in closing, don't make room for bad news. Make every day your own good news, and always keep yourself and others in a great mental space. Until the next time, cheers.
My brother.
Good night, Sean. Good night.